Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciated the suggestion that fees and fines should be adjusted based on income. Judge Foster, do you know if the federal courts adjust fees and fines based on income?
So the federal government doesn't impose many fees certainly not at
Judge,
conviction.
I know you'll appreciate that. I just need you to answer the question, if you can.
I am trying.
Well,
The
let's get
federal
around.
government,
Does the federal government, it's pretty simple, do they do that?
well, they don't need to if they don't impose them.
All right, thank you.
respect to
Does anybody know besides Judge Foster whether the federal courts adjust fees and fines based on income? We'll have to pursue that and find out for sure. I think it's a good suggestion. One of the things I noted, having worked as a felony judge in the state system, was how many departments would get federal grants, and they would start offering what the federal grants would require. The grants would go away, and they're looking for income streams to replace what the federal government lured them into doing. And people would say, hey, we like to do that, so you got to come up with a source of revenue. The locals in the state couldn't afford to provide more, so they looked at fines and fees. So I think all of it needs to be looked at. I'm particularly concerned, since this is the federal government, about the forfeitures. I know Judge Foster didn't think fines and fees are a problem in the federal system, but they have been, and I've seen them be. So we have a little different perspective on that. But especially when the federal government engages in forfeitures where they have decided, gee, we can't convict somebody, so we'll just go in and take his property, and they end up taking property of the family that was not involved in any wrongdoing. It destroys their way to make a living. I wondered, Mr. Head, have you observed anything of that nature from the federal government and problems with forfeitures?
Yes, sir. And asset forfeiture is a bit of a unique animal because it has federal implications that when applied also sort of brings local or state jurisdictions in. So it's sort of this hybrid practice that even when states may either reduce, or even a number of states now have abolished civil asset forfeiture, the federal government can essentially cooperate on a given project, and the assets that are brought in through that project are then split between the feds and that jurisdiction, state or local jurisdiction. So it becomes a problematic situation, and then the assets themselves frequently are used for programs, but as another witness alluded to, it's kind of by definition, it's an erratic, unpredictable income stream, so to speak, revenue stream for a government. So it's not only is it problematic on a property rights standpoint and a familial standpoint, but it also is not a reliable way to run any government program.
Well, there's an element of unfairness that you can often find, correct?
That's exactly right.
And that's my concern from a federal standpoint, is the element of unfairness. With regard to a reimbursement as a fine or fee to a defendant in federal court, since federal court is where we clearly have jurisdiction, I have seen pre-sentence reports come back with egregiously outrageous amounts of alleged reimbursement that overwhelms the defendant. They can never pay it back, but the prosecution felt good about having such a high number. Have you seen things of that nature in federal court?
Yes, sir. The practice is that practice into of itself tends to be a bit erratic in different jurisdictions across the country. Some regions, some districts are more maybe cavalier in that practice than others. But you're exactly right. Even when I mean, it's not uncommon actually for people to for defendants to actually be acquitted of all or many of the charges, but still have to levy the kind of bear the burden. Again, you know, I think of these things almost as user fees. You rented, in essence, our defense counsel, our courtroom, you know, our stenographer, et cetera. And so even if you got off, we're still going to.
If you're stuck on one, and I see my time's expired, but I would, Madam Chair, I would like to see this also pursued because it's not uncommon from what I've seen to have the pre-sentence report include an amount of restitution that seems very high. Maybe it's unlimited, but I would hope maybe we could look at that at some point. But I appreciate having the hearing. Thank you.
Mr. Gohmert, while this hearing is not on that, you are absolutely right. It is an issue that this committee should take up. And I was here long enough to have been with Mr. Hyde when we were also discussing the forfeiture challenges that we face on the federal level. So, and we probably are long overdue. And so let us look forward in a bipartisan way to look at those issues. I thank you for raising them, former judge. It's now